So what's your problem? What do you want to talk about?
Relationships.
Not that again. Huh?
The tough one in Shabbos.
That's a good one. I know what I want to talk about. What do you want to talk about? Really, what's on the agenda? What do you talk about when nobody's around?
I don't know. This might be too controversial.
Oh, good.
So, like, I sometimes feel like there is a split between Chabad and other parts of the Torah world, and it upsets me because we're all Jews. And I just want to know, like, what you think of the situation in ways that I could help me get over.
Well, there's a split because we're special. Actually, Chabad has always been a bit of an enigma to the frum world. We seem to have a better understanding with non-frum people than we do with frum people. And that's because of one simple difference in philosophy. A Jew is a Jew because of his neshama, because a Jewish soul is a little piece of God, and there's nothing you can do about it. I bought my sister. I was in Colorado, and I was in this little souvenir shop. They had this embroidered pillow. I thought it was really nice. I bought it for my sister. On one side of the pillow it says, "I'm smiling because you're my sister." But on the other side of the pillow it said, on the other side it said, "And I'm laughing because there's nothing you can do about it." So the same would be true. I'm smiling because you're my fellow Jew, and I'm laughing because there's nothing you can do about it. You can't sin your way out. So we're stuck with each other. And that's real Avas Yisrael, by the way. Real Avas Yisrael means I hate you and I can't get rid of you. Because if you're not my fellow Jew and I hate you, I get rid of you. I don't care. But if you hate a Jew, you're stuck with him. And recognizing that you're stuck with him, that's Avas Yisrael. In fact, it's because you're stuck with him that you hate him. If you weren't stuck with him, you wouldn't care. So, this philosophy, the Jewishness of the Jew, every non-frum person understands very well. Because every person who is not observant will insist and will tell you, I'm just as Jewish as you, even if I don't keep all the rituals. Exactly right. But people who are frum feel that there is a difference. You're as Jewish as you are frum. And that's a bridge we can't seem to, or a gulf that we can't seem to bridge. So that's one basic difference. The other thing is, and this we really should talk about, seeing Judaism as a religion is a mistake. Being observant, doing mitzvahs, is not practicing a religion. It's just being true to yourself. You know, you ask a non-Jew, what is your religion? He says, I don't know, I'm Christian. You say, and what were you before you became Christian? He says, nothing. To a Jew, that doesn't compute. What do you mean nothing? You can be nothing. Yes, you can be nothing. In other words, you can be a human being without religion. That's the nature of religion. But being Jewish is not like that. What were you before you were from? Jewish. And what are you now? So this whole emphasis on religiosity is a mistake. And it causes a lot of problems, not between Chabad and other religious people, but between non-religious and religious, particularly in Israel. The gulf is so intense, it's scary. So one of the things that we don't see eye to eye with in a frum person is that I don't consider myself frum. I don't want to be frum. I can't relate to frum people. A Jew who's keeping 10 mitzvahs is being Jewish, right? If he's keeping 613, he's still Jewish and there's nothing he can do about it. You can't become more Jewish, just like you can't become less Jewish. So having this heated discussion with a Reform rabbi, and he says, why aren't you more tolerant? We're all practicing the same religion. I said, that's what I got a problem with. You're too religious for me. and I mean that. Let me give you a good example. The Rebbe started this project in 1967 of stopping men in the street and asking them to put on tefillin. Right? The tefillin campaign. Here's how it works. This little boy from yeshiva, 15-year-old, stops a man in the street and says, excuse me, are you Jewish? The guy says, yeah. And the boy says, would you like to put on tefillin? The guy says, no. And the boy says, oh, it's a big mitzvah. The guy says, yeah, I'm sure it is, but I'm not religious. The boy says, but it only takes a minute. The guy says, whatever, but I'm not religious. The guy says, you know, the Rebbe said that this helps Jews in Israel. He says, don't you hear what I'm saying? I'm not religious. The boy rolls up his sleeve, takes out the tefillin, and says, say the bracha, Baruch. The guy says, you know, I really shouldn't do this. I'm not religious. No, say Baruch. The guy starts saying Baruch, and he makes the bracha, and halfway through he starts to cry. That's the typical. Now let's understand the lack of communication. The guy says, I shouldn't put on tefillin. I'm not religious. The boy says, it only takes a minute. You're not listening. I'm not religious. The guy said, oh, it's a big mitzvah. So what are you talking about? The guy is thinking, I'm sure you put on tefillin, and you should, because you're religious. And I envy you. I admire you for your faith. But I'm not religious, so I shouldn't be putting on the tefillin. The boy says, only takes a minute. So why are they not communicating? It's because this Lubavitcher boy never heard of the notion of a religious Jew. And that's why when he stopped the guy, he didn't say, excuse me, are you religious? He said, excuse me, are you Jewish? I asked you if you're Jewish, you said yes. So here's your tefillin. He said, but I'm not religious. I didn't ask you. See, the guy is thinking, this boy puts on tefillin because he's religious. And that's not true. This kid puts on tefillin because he's a Jew. He doesn't think of himself as religious. He doesn't even want to be religious. In fact, he finds it very hard to communicate with people who are religious. So that's why when the guy says, I'm not religious, it goes right over his head. He says, I'm not talking about religion. Here's your tefillin. So where do people get this notion that if you start observing and if you start doing mitzvahs, you become something? What do you become? A woman said, if I go to the mikveh, what will I become? I said, wet. What are you expecting to become? You're Jewish now, you'll be Jewish after the mikveh too, I promise you. So, the misunderstanding between Chabad and religious people is because we're not religious. We don't think religious. We just think Jewish. Right? And really, that is the message. The message is, at Har Sinai, there was not a single Orthodox Jew. You realize that? When God spoke to us at Mount Sinai, there wasn't a single Orthodox Jew there. So the Torah was given to non-Orthodox people. How they became Orthodox, I don't know when that happened. And the truth is that it's almost blasphemous to say Orthodox or religious, because you're implying that being a Jew is not enough. It's not the best. Being religious is the best. So I had a long conversation with a Buddhist. Nice boy. He couldn't understand why he can't marry a devout Jewish woman. Because he's devout Buddhist, she's devout Jewish. What's the problem? We're both religious. Same God. There's only one God. In fact, he refused to marry her until she became devout Jewish. So she came to Beis Chana, to our program, to become devout. And then the second day, they're like, no. This is not a good shidduch. So if you're thinking religious, you have something in common with all religions. You have your religion, I have my religion, there are many religions. We don't have a religion. We got to get past that. To say, okay, fine, you're Jewish, but are you Orthodox? Excuse me, Jewish is better. You can't embellish on that. You can't become better than Jewish. I think it's a good message, and that if people in Israel stopped being haredi and just went back to being Jewish, I think we'd have a much healthier society here. And if people stopped being secular or chiloni, which is a joke, if you're Jewish, you're not chiloni. That's like saying I'm a non-Jewish Jew, which is just as bad as saying I'm a religious Jew. If you were already Jewish, what do you have to become religious for? You think that's better? It's not better. So, we will know that Mashiach is here when people, the average person, walks down the street and sees a Jew wearing tefillin and says, oh, a Jew. Not a religion. He's being Jewish. So if your friend says to you, oh, you keep kosher? When did you become religious? What are you going to say? I asked a group of girls, what would you say if your friend says, oh, you're becoming religious? And they said, just starting. We're going to become a lot more religious. Wrong answer. Don't ever say that to your mother. She's shocked enough. So yeah, if your mother says, why are you becoming so religious? What would you say? Well, you should be too. That wouldn't go over big, would it? Actually, a woman calls me, very angry. She says, "What did you do to my daughter?" Her daughter happens to be about 28. And she came to Beis Chana for a couple of weeks. I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, she came home from your program and she won't eat in my kitchen." What'd you do to her? I said, "Let me ask you a personal question. Did your mother eat in your kitchen?" She said, "No, my mother was Orthodox." I said, "So wait a minute. Your mother won't eat in your kitchen, your daughter won't eat in your kitchen. Leave me out of this. This is a family affair." What did you do to my daughter? Well, if a Christian kid comes back from India with a what? Yeah, with the dot. Yeah? Then the mother is entitled to ask, "Who did this to you?" If an Indian kid comes back home and he's lost his dot, the mother has a right to say, "Who did this to you?" A Jewish kid comes home and says, "We're Jewish, right? Who did this to you?" So I said to this mother, I said, "Look, I didn't make her Jewish, you did. Handle it." Your daughter comes home and says, "Ma, how come we're not more Jewish?" Huh? Who did this to you? Who did what? But if she came home and said, "Ma, I think we should be Orthodox," well, who did that to you? That's a good question. I'll make the point the best and we'll go on to other subjects. A boy in Minneapolis came back from a trip to Israel. The parents are the reform epitome, like Mr. and Mrs. Reform. He comes home from Israel. Somebody at the Kaisel got, I don't know what happened. He came back observant. He says to his mother, Friday night, after the Shkia, he said, "Oh, I forgot to call my friend and tell him I wasn't coming. Ma, can you call him and tell him?" This Sheba Reform mother calls me and says, "My son asked me to make a phone call when he couldn't." That's not right, is it? She doesn't know why exactly, but no, something's wrong. Wait, you can't? I'm the Shabbos guy? I'm your mother. I made you Jewish. How can a person even think like that? He became frum. That was the mistake. He didn't become a good Jewish boy. He became frum. His mother's not frum, so she can make a phone call on Shabbos. This is bad news. This should never, ever happen. So when you come home to your mother and you want to break the news to her gently, you say, "Ma, thank you so much for making me Jewish. I love being Jewish. In fact, I even love Jewish food." See, that's how you slip it in. So how about if we kept kosher? Then she won't be worried. Also, if you come home without a sense of humor, your mother will be right to say, "What did you do with my daughter? You are not the girl I raised." She's right. Becoming observant doesn't mean you forgot how to laugh. That means you became frum. Don't become frum. Leave religion for other people. We're Jewish. We don't go for religion. So what then is Judaism if not religion? Judaism means basically this. God existed all by himself, perfectly, because he's perfect. And then one day, I'm simplifying, then one day he said, this is boring. I got to get a life. I'm paraphrasing. So he created the world. And he said, please, help me with this project. The world is not holy. Can you make it holy for me? Because as long as the world is not holy, then there's a lack of oneness. Because there's holy and there's there's godly and there's non. That's not good. I want everything to be united into one big unity of holiness. And the only way to do that is through freedom of choice. Because if I take away freedom of choice, then I'm not allowing the unholy to become holy. I'm just refusing its existence. So God creates everything, even the most unholy, so that it too can become part of the oneness. What is the most unholy thing in the world? Not pig. The most unholy thing in the world is freedom of choice. Pig doesn't have freedom of choice. He didn't choose to be a pig. It comes natural. Freedom of choice means, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. See, there's nothing more evil than that. So freedom of choice is the lowest condition in all of creation. Or spitefulness, right?
But if God created it, how could it be unholy?
Right. So this unholiest of all things needs to become part of holiness. It begins by recognizing that God created it. See, that's already becoming holier. So if we realize our freedom of choice is just a gift from above, see, we're improving already. You can't be as spiteful once you recognize that it came from Him. But here's the point. He created the world without our asking Him to. So He created the world because of something He is after. Despite His perfect existence, He's not content. See, He's after something. He created the world with a purpose. And that purpose has to be realized. And yet, He makes Himself vulnerable to our free choice. And that seems to be like an impossible arrangement. He has a very definite plan for how the world should be, yet He gives us freedom of choice, and we can refuse to be. So how is this going to end? How is this going to turn out? If you could answer that question, you have a healthy view of what Torah and Judaism is all about. God created the world on His own initiative. It's like in a marriage, He proposed to us. He came looking for us. He chose Avraham, took him from his birthplace, brought him to Israel, and said, have I got a plan for you? If you're responding to God's purpose and to God's need, are you being religious? If God comes to you and says, I need you to do this, and you do it, that's because you're religious, it's because you're spiritual, it's because you're holy, or is it because you can't say no to Him? That's not religion. A religion means, I need something from God, what can I do to prevail on Him to give me this spiritual, godly reward? Whatever it may be. That's religion. Religion means living a certain lifestyle that will get you certain benefits. We don't do that. We don't do that. The Torah was given to us God is petitioning us. We're not petitioning Him. We didn't come to Him with 613 demands. He came to us with 613 needs. And if we say, yeah, sure, if that's what you need from me, I'll try my best, that makes you religious, spiritual. It's only decent. He created you, He's giving you life, He's taking care of you, He needs you to do something for Him. You're going to say no? There are two opinions in the Gemara about how the event at Sinai actually happened. When God gave a positive mitzvah and said, do this, how did we respond? How did the Jews respond? One opinion says, when God said, do this, we said yes. When God said, don't do that, don't work on Shabbos, we said no. No, we won't. The other opinion says, when God gave a positive mitzvah, we said yes, hen. And when God said don't, we said yes. Yes, we won't. Like, yes, we have no bananas. What are they arguing about? Does everything have to be an argument? The two opinions are actually two philosophies. When God gives you a commandment, should you respond to the commandment or should you respond to Him? If I ask you to do me a favor, do you respond to the favor or do you respond to me? So if I ask you to do something for me and you say, you want that? What do you want that? You're responding to the favor, not to me. If I ask you to do something for me and you say, for you? Yeah. What was it again? What was it you wanted me to do? So one of the sages says you have to respond to the mitzvah. If you're responding to the mitzvah, if it's a positive mitzvah, say yes. If it's a negative mitzvah, say no. Appropriate to the mitzvah. The other sage says, what's the difference what the mitzvah is? Respond to Him. So if He says do a mitzvah, we say yes. And if He says don't do a sin, we say yes. Yes, whatever you want. That's the key to a good relationship. A good relationship means I'm there for you. What do you want? What do you need? I don't care. I'm not particular. If you need it, that's what I'm here for. Now, personally, I think what you need is off the wall. I think you're wacky. You need that? That's ridiculous. But I don't care. If that's what you need, that's what I'm here for. I don't need it. I can't imagine why you need it, but I don't care. I'm not here for needs. I'm here for you. It's a very different relationship. Today's marriages are extremely selfish. I marry you because I love you. You appeal to me. You make me happy. You want what? Are you crazy? I'm not here for that. Sorry. I don't do that. So if you have needs or tastes or preferences that I can't agree with, you're not making me so happy anymore. Sorry. It's over. We fell out of love. That's a disaster. Marriage doesn't mean we have things in common. Marriage means we have to have each other. We need to be one. We need to get together. What will make you comfortable? Whatever it takes, fine with me. But we have to be together. So marriage means not, I want to live a happy life. No, I want to be married to you. And you're going to make me miserable. I know that. Because you're weird. You have needs I never even heard of. Where do you come up with this stuff? And yet, I want to be married to you. And that can be unconditional. I accept you unconditionally. Your opinions, I think you're weird. But that's okay, because you're my weird. Like your mother. Yeah. Is your mother weird? Every mother is weird. She's a mother. That makes her weird right there. Because you're not a mother and she is. So what have you got in common? Wait till you become a mother. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I am my mother after all. Just wait, you'll see. But until then, you should be able to say, can I introduce you to my mother? She's a little weird, but she's my mom. So her weird is my weird, because she's my weird mom. And that's what marriage should be. I'm not ashamed to introduce you to my husband. Of course, he's wacko, you'll find out. But he's mine. And the same with my children. And by the way, the same with my God. I remember having this discussion where a woman came to Beis Chana, and she went home, and she calls me afterwards and she says, I got into a big fight with my mother. I don't know what to say. What should I say? She asked me if I was going to cover my hair. And I said yes. And she said, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of, and we got into a big argument. I said, excuse me, but what was your side of the argument? What did you say? It's not weird? She said, well, I tried to explain it. I said, there's no explanation, you know that. It's weird. She says, I know, but I can't say that to my mother. I said, why not? What, are you protecting God? God's weird. But he's my God. Don't protect him. Don't apologize for him. Say he's God. You never know what to expect with God. So he's my God. That is. See, we don't do that. We don't do that. I'm talking to this guy. He's really upset. His wife is sitting right there, and he goes on and on and on for an hour. She this and she that, and she never and she always, and I told her and she would. I said, well, who are you talking about? He says, he points to her and he says, her? I said, oh, your wife. He says, yeah. I said, repeat the whole thing again. And this time say, my wife. My wife is this and my wife is that, and he couldn't do it. You know why? That's your wife? Your wife is that bad, that stupid, that cruel, that... What's wrong with you? You married her? See, it's too embarrassing. He doesn't want to say, my wife is... I married a stupid woman. I married an evil woman. Oh, that makes me sound like an idiot. So it's not my wife, it's just her. She is bad news. He never married her. She is not his. And that's why if things are not right, then he's not into it. It was never about her. It was always about things. And she got everything wrong. Yiddishkeit is not about things. Are you Shomer Shabbos? Are you Shomer Nagia? Oh, wow. You're really into it. No, we're not into it. We're into him. He is my God. That's all. Everything after that is commentary. So if he is my God, I serve him. How does he want to be served? By covering my hair? That's weird. But if that's fine, he's my God. And if I don't cover my hair, he's still my God. That's called a marriage. That's called a relationship. That's called intimacy. If someone were to ask you, why don't we see God? Do you know the answer? Why don't we see him? Not evidence of him. Him. Why don't we see him? If you say it, well, because there's nothing to see. He's invisible. He's a spirit. You feel him. You don't. No, that's not Jewish. God is the most real existence of all. And he created all these things that are not real. Tables, chairs, buildings, stones. They're not real. He created it all. And you can see the stone, but you can't see him. He's more real. Why don't we see him? Some people say, well, God doesn't let us see him because that would take away our freedom of choice. Not really. Bilam was a non-Jewish prophet. He saw God. And he tried to spite him. The reason we don't see God is because he won't let us. Why won't he let us? Because what he's looking for is an intimate connection and relationship. When you see something, it prevents intimacy. Because your eyes see things. That's all your eye can see is things. You look at a person, you see the person, you have no idea who or what this person is. All you see is a bunch of things about the person. His height, his weight, his color. These are things. No matter how long you stare at somebody, you don't get to know them any better. By not letting us see him, God is basically saying, I don't want to be seen, I want to be known. Get to know me or hear me. The difference between seeing and hearing. Seeing is believing, but it's objective. I saw. Hearing is much more personal. God is saying, hear me. There's nothing to see. I want to be heard. In other words, God wants an intimate relationship, not a practical working relationship. For that, if we saw him, it would be more practical. Because we don't see him, it's taking 3,000 years for us to get it right, to figure it out, to get to know him, to understand him, to be in sync with him. Fine. If it takes 3,000 years, then fine. But it's got to be an intimate relationship, not a superficial relationship. So what does intimate mean? Intimate means I'm there for you, not for something, for nothing. A husband and wife have nothing between them. It's just them. It's him and her and nothing else. If you introduce anything, you've ruined the relationship. So for example, the Mishnah says, this is very wise, deep, listen to this. If I love you for some ulterior motive, and that ulterior reason goes away, I won't love you anymore. Is that deep? Is that profound? If I love you for your money, and then you don't have any money, I'm not going to love you anymore. That's, I think, rather obvious. Not only is it obvious, it's not even correct. If I love you for your money, I never loved you. It's not like, oh, you don't have any money? I don't love you anymore. I never loved you. I just want the money. So it's worded wrong. Then the Mishnah says, if there's a relationship that is not based on anything, that relationship will last forever. Here's the deeper meaning. If we have a relationship because of love, we love each other. Love is a thing. If a relationship is based on a thing, and love can be that thing, then this relationship won't last. Now that's a radical statement. If you get married out of love, big mistake. Fact is that in the last 50 years, everybody gets married out of love. There are no more arranged marriages. Every marriage that has happened in the United States in the last 50 years was a love affair. Are marriages better now than they were then? They're a joke. Marriage has become a joke. So if you marry out of love, this relationship will not last because there's something besides you and him. What is that thing? Love. Marriage means it's just you and him. How do you get everything else out of the picture? How do you get to be really into him without love? Without anything, just him. So let me give you an example. This mother is telling me that she has a very hard time getting along with her daughter. They argue, they fight, they disagree. I said, you know, you're not really into your daughter. You're always preaching at her. Why don't you just become mother and daughter? She says, well, how do I do that? I said, when you go out, wherever it is, you're running an errand, ask your daughter to come with you. Just to come with you. She says, why? I say, you see, there's your problem. You need a reason to spend time with your daughter? She said, what will we talk about? I said, who says you have to talk? You see the problem? She's your daughter, and she is free. She's not busy. You're going someplace. Ask her to come with you. What will we talk about? See, this is a relation dependent on something. There should be no thing, just her. Certainly a marriage needs that kind of oneness. Just him. It's about him. Now, women understand this better than men, because women are always complaining, he's a good man, and he's loyal, and he works hard, and he supports the family, but I don't know if he's really into me. And women say that to their husbands, and the husbands say, what do you want? What do you want? No, I just don't know if you're there for me. What? Money? What do you want? You want to go out? You want to vacate? What do you want? And you don't know how to explain it. So everybody gets frustrated, and you go talk to your friends, and you say, men just don't get it. We don't get it. Yeah, because there is no it. We don't get it. Actually, we get it very well. If you're talking about it, I know what you're talking about. But you don't mean it, you mean me. I don't know what you're talking about. And the same thing with God. You're into Shabbos? Don't be into Shabbos. Seventh-day Adventists are into Shabbos. You're Jewish. Don't be a Shomer Shabbos. Is that some kind of profession? And then, of course, you can be better at it than the other Shomer Shabbos. It becomes a competition. Oh, you think you keep Shabbos? You use the Erev? I don't. It becomes nasty. Don't be Shomer Shabbos. And don't go kosher. You ever heard that expression? Oh, you've gone kosher now? I haven't gone anywhere. It's about him. It's not about it. So I don't want to go kosher. I don't want to be Shomer Shabbos. I certainly don't want to be Shomer Nagia. But I'm into him. So whatever he wants, as weird as it is, I'm into that. There's no thing in Judaism. There's just him. So when he says do a mitzvah, we say yes. He says don't do a sin? Yes. Just keep talking. Just don't stop talking to me, because it's about you. Can that change the world? Boy, it can change the world. If we could teach non-Jews, will you stop being so religious? You become any more religious, you're going to start killing people. I know, that's the history of religion. If we could teach people, will you stop being religious? Can you just listen to God and hear what he's saying? When you become religious, you almost end up telling God what to say. No, you don't mean that, you mean this. No, let God speak for himself. Be into him. It's practice for marriage. Some guy says, I have to do what God wants? I'm not into that. I pity your wife. I pity your wife. She's not even God. You're going to do for her what she wants? You won't even do for God what he wants. So if you're not practicing being into him, you're not practicing for marriage. And that's why when we were into God, we had healthy marriages. The way one goes, so goes the other. We're not into him. We're not going to be into our family. We're not going to be into our community. We're not into anybody. I'm here for me. Well, that's the end of civilization. So the message that we need to bring to the world, and of course beginning with our own communities, we're not trying to be religious. We don't want to be religious. We don't need a religion. We just want him. Somebody says, 613 I mean, that's a bit much, don't you think? I said, well, how many things does a wife do? Have you ever counted? It's a bit much. You do dishes? You cook? You do laundry? You do the floors? Windows? You're Orthodox. You're a fanatic. No. No. Just my family. Well, how many things do you do for your family? Who's counting? Who's counting? If you start counting, 4 things is that's pushing it. So 613 commandments are too many? 10 commandments are too many. 3 are too many. If you're counting. But we don't count. It's a relationship. It's a family. We have 14 children.
Sneeze on the tree.
Or it's an allergic reaction. I don't know what it is.
Someone laughed.
So one time I was speaking somewhere, and I was introduced at that time as having 11 children. That was the introduction. I spoke about something very profound and very interesting. But this woman, immediately as I finished speaking, raises her hand and says, 11 children? She didn't hear a word after that. She says, you have 11 children? I said, yes. And very seriously, with a straight face, she said, do you know that some people don't have any? And for a moment, I felt guilty. I was taught to share. What do you mean you grab 11 kids and leave others with nothing? But then I recovered. And I realized, no, you can't have somebody else's kids. Can't, right? So when people hear, 11 children, 14 children, somebody was asking me, how many children you have? I said, 14. I said, oh, 14s. I said, no, 14. Didn't register. Anyway, so somebody once said to me, how did you decide to have 14 children? I said, well, when we were dating, we discussed it. My wife wanted 10, I wanted 15, so. It doesn't work that way. 14 children, that's a lot. 8 is enough. 3 is too many. But who's counting? You don't count. I have one family, Am I entitled to one family? Am I entitled to my family? Yeah, but 14 children? Is it 14, 15, 20? What's the difference? Well, there's a difference. Come to think of it. There's a family here. I think it's a Lipsker family. They have 22 children. So they were interviewed by the newspaper, and they asked the teenage daughter, so do you plan to have a big family? She said, oh no. 15 and that's it. It's all relative, right? So you don't decide to have 14 children. You decide to have a family. How many members in this family? What's the difference? It's just my family. And the same is true with mitzvahs. You have how many mitzvahs? Why, you do that too? I have one God, one relationship, one Torah, one people. How rich is that? Oh, the richer the better. How many things are you going to do for your husband? Do you really want to count? If you count, you'll be overwhelmed. Well, that's a full-time job. So, how do you raise 14 children? I have a terrible time raising 2. See? Can't get any worse. Raising 2 children is a full-time job. You might as well have 14. You can't handle 2? Have 14. They'll handle each other. And by the way, that's what happened. You think 14 children means 14 kids in diapers? No, it doesn't work that way. You have 14 children, they take care of each other. You can leave. It's just one family. It's just about us. There's no it. There's no numbers. So when God said, I have a Torah with mitzvahs, we didn't ask how many. Maybe we should have, but we didn't. We said, your Torah, I want it. Because it's about you. Does this make sense? So here's an important thing. Remember when you get married to become a wife. Now this needs to be said. Men and women get married and they remain men and women. They don't become husband and wife. And that's a disaster. They don't become husband and wife because there's no glamour in being a wife. And there's no glamour in being a husband. So men love women. Nobody loves wives. A wife is a nerd. Right. When married women get together to go out, what is it called? What do they call it? A girls' night out. Why isn't it a wives' night out? Hey, we're trying to have some fun here, okay? Wives? Wives are desperate. Girls have fun. They don't even want to be women, they just want to be girls. So if you're getting married, get married because you want to be a wife. And expect your man to become a husband. Because husbands and wives are very good for each other. Men and women are not good for each other. So if you get married and you're a woman and he's a man, it's not going to work. You know how men are. It's not going to work. Husbands, that's a different story. When we accept Torah and mitzvahs, it's not like bargaining, negotiating. So if I do this mitzvah, will you do that for me? If I say Tehillim, will money come pouring in from... Don't negotiate. Get married. Get married. Our slogan, you know, Muslims have a slogan, God is powerful, and Christians have their slogan.
Watch that.
God is love. God is salvation. What's our slogan? Our slogan is, this is my God. Do I need to say anything more? Ze keli ve'anvehu. This is my God. Is he powerful? Did I mention that he was God? Is God powerful? That's what they say. Do I care whether he's powerful? What do I care? He's my God. Is he love? I say, you want to see a picture of my kids? Are they cute? They're my kids. Yeah, but are they cute? Are they powerful? This is my God. He came looking for me. He spoke to my grandfather. He's my God. Yeah, but can he make rain? Don't be ridiculous. He's my God. If he makes rain, he makes rain. Doesn't he? Doesn't. So why are we into God? Because how can you say no to him? He says, I created the whole world because I want a relationship with you. What are we going to say? Call it off. Uncreate the world, I don't care. If God comes to you, you say yes. Not because you're religious, not because he's powerful. If everybody thought that way, would there be wars? Would various religions be killing each other? It wouldn't. So this is our message to the world. Stop trying to get things from God. Start to serve Him. It's His world. It's about Him. He created it. It's His plan. It's His purpose. It's His vision. You want to be part of it? Then do it. Don't get religious. That can save the world. It can also save your relationship with your mother. So, questions? Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
How do you address, like, within the Chabad movement, like the different viewpoints of the Rebbe's role?
Can you be more specific?
Yeah, but not even that. It's just, like how, like, but there are, like, two major colleges there, and one, like, Chabad, the Rebbe is he's on the wall, but he's not really, like, spoken about at the meals, and the other Chabad, like, strongly always stresses, the things that he does, and, like, the first L'chaim goes to the Rebbe, and, you have the extra line in benching for the Rebbe, and it's like a more prevalent view of, like, where the Rebbe stands in, like,
That's not a different philosophy. That's just a different personality. If you're talking about the Mashiach business, there is no such philosophy. When Mashiach is here, you'll know he's here, and there'll be no debate. Fact is, Mashiach is not here, and we've got big problems. So discussing who Mashiach is like so irrelevant that it's a joke. So there's no such philosophy about who is Mashiach. How prevalent is the Rebbe in a chassid's life? How prevalent is your mother in your life? Very. That's why I never mention her. Or that's why I'm always talking about her, right? So how much of a role, how much of an influence has the Rebbe had on a chassid's life? So there are two possibilities. Both of them are devoted to outreach. Both of them are doing what the Rebbe inspired them to do. One of them says, the Rebbe taught me to devote my life to my fellow Jew. And I got it. And I love doing this. So he stops mentioning the Rebbe. The other one feels, I wouldn't be doing this. I'm not into this. But the Rebbe wants me to, so I'm doing it. He's going to mention the Rebbe every 10 minutes. Because without the Rebbe's influence, he'd quit. So the question is like this. Are you obeying the Rebbe, or did you catch the fever? I prefer the catching of the fever. If you've been a student of the Rebbe for 40 years, you should be beyond doing him a favor and going on shlichus. All right? It should be your thing by now. Once it becomes your thing, you can stop quoting. The Rebbe said to do this, the Rebbe said to do that. No, the Rebbe said, be good. So be good. You can stop quoting now. But for some people, it's not their personality to be so outgoing. It's not their personality to be so devoted. And if it was up to them, they wouldn't do it. They're only doing it because the Rebbe said. So you're going to hear the Rebbe quoted a lot. So it's just a different... I think the Rebbe would prefer, you know what I'm saying, make it your thing. Don't do me a favor. I think that's what the chief rabbi of England, after the Rebbe passed away, he said, you know what was unique about the Rebbe? He was a leader who didn't create followers. He created leaders. He didn't want you to follow him. He wanted you to catch the fever. What better way to spend your life than by devoting it to your fellow Jew? You're doing me a favor? Don't do me a favor. Catch the fever. Anything else? Yeah.
You were saying that God wants a relationship with us.
Yeah.
But I thought that God doesn't have any needs, so how could he want anything from us?
There's a big danger in idolizing God. That sounds... Don't idolize him. There are idols, and then there's God. Don't idolize God. Don't turn him into an idol. The more we think about him as being perfect, the more irrelevant he becomes. He doesn't want to be irrelevant, because that's not perfect. That's stale. That's meaningless. We've made God so perfect that he has become completely irrelevant. So if God is so perfect that he needs nothing, cares about nothing, never cries, never laughs, then who needs him? Then what are you worshiping? Imagine being married to a man who's perfect. It would be horrible. Does God cry? Yes?
Yes. Keeps the brick under his throne.
If God doesn't cry, then don't mention your tears to him. What do you think, that impresses him? Please, I'm crying. You're crying? He's perfect. Why should your tears mean anything to him if he doesn't cry? How can your pain mean anything to him if he has no pain? How can your excitement on doing his mitzvahs mean anything to him if he doesn't get excited? We have a very mistaken, very plastic notion of what perfect means. A perfect man is a man who cries when things are painful, who laughs when things are happy, who mourns when things are tragic. Alive, real. And we're created in his image. So he must be even more real. So if anybody cries, he does. If anybody takes pleasure, he does. If anybody gets hurt, he does. That's what we mean by God is true, God is alive, a living God. A living God means a God who reacts, responds. Not a perfect, untouchable, unreachable, cold statue. We're turning God into a statue. God is perfect because he needs, and really needs. He's perfect because he does cry. What's perfect about not crying when your children are suffering? There's nothing perfect about that. So, does the fact that he's real, the fact that he has a response that is appropriate to the event, does that make him less perfect? or more perfect. When we say he's all powerful, we don't mean he's like a rock. All powerful means when it's time to cry, he knows how to cry. And when it's time to rejoice and be happy, he knows how to be happy. That's called all powerful. That's why he's lovable. How can you love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, and he's sitting there laughing at you? That's not God.
How does the person access him?
The way he wants. You access a person by getting in touch with their need, with their tastes, with their pleasures, with their pain. That's how you do it. The whole Torah is God revealing himself to us by telling us what gives him pleasure, what gives him pain, what makes him happy, what makes him hurt. That's the whole Torah. The whole Torah is a revelation. What was revealed in the Torah? He revealed himself. So how do you respond? You react to what he's telling you about himself. This guy says to me, how do I get my wife to whatever? I said, you're asking me how to get your wife? Ask her. Oh, I didn't think of that. I don't know what makes my wife happy. You want me to call her? I'll call her. I'll find out for you. Why didn't you ask her? You know what the answer is? He did ask her. And she said, it would make me very happy if you would bring a rose for the dinner table. So he went out and he bought a dozen roses. She's miserable. So I can't ask her because she never tells me. She says, bring a rose. I brought a dozen roses. It didn't make her any happier. I said, she asked you to bring one. Why did you bring a dozen? He says, well, if one is good, a dozen's even better. Did you ask her? The guy who says, I put 3 mezuzahs on my door. So who asked you to put 3? Well, if one is good. She's not happy because you don't care about her. She said a rose. Why did you change it? Because to you, a dozen makes more sense. That's to you. What? God says, don't work on Shabbos. And we say, oh, what a brilliant idea. Family time. God says, don't work on Shabbos. Say, right, family time. Can you listen to me? Don't work on Shabbos, even if you have no family. Why do you embellish? Because it makes more sense to you this way, which means you're not listening to her. This one guy tells me, I have no idea what my wife wants. We were sitting together. He said, I don't know what she wants from my life. So I turned to the wife and I said, you know, you've been married 9 years. Don't you think it's time to tell your husband what you want? And of course she said, tell him. I have told him 1,000,000 times. He says, what? She says, I've told you 1,000,000 times, don't make fun of my sister. He turns to me and says, you see that? She makes me crazy. I said, what? She just told you what she wanted. He says, you think that's what she wants? That's not what she wants. Her sister's an idiot. So it turns out he has a sister. He hates her. He loves to make fun of his sister. So when she says, don't make fun of my sister, it's like, nah. You don't care about your sister. She's an idiot. I don't understand being sensitive about a sister because I'm not sensitive about my sister. Ever hear a guy say that? What, I make fun of my mother? Why can't I make fun of your mother? That is so inconsiderate. If I don't share your need, then your need is not real. She doesn't really care about her sister. How could she? Her sister's an idiot. We do the same thing with God. God says, don't mix meat and milk. He doesn't mean that you can't put a little milk in your... Come on. Couldn't mean that. I don't care if you put milk in your... If I don't care, why should he? Because you're not God. Maybe. So if we do that with God, it's really... One more story. I was in Colorado, in Boulder, where the hippies live on forever. And there was this group of women who started a women's minyan. And they were having some trouble. So they asked me two questions. They said, first of all, how does a minyan work? Some read, some don't read, some read fast, some read slow, some like to sing. How does this work? And secondly, what is the point of saying words that are not even ours? Somebody else wrote them and we say them every day. So I said, your first question I really don't know how to answer because I don't know how a minyan works. She says, well, but you daven with a minyan. I said, a minyan means 10 guys who don't like each other get together and daven and go home. You want to know how group dynamic works? Well, I have no idea. A minyan is not group dynamic. It's just, you got to daven with a minyan, so you daven with these guys you can't stand. If you want to know how group dynamics work, you call in an expert and they'll tell you how to, the lighting in the room and the seating arrangement. And the second question, I can't believe women are asking this question. They say, what does that have to do with being women? Why are we saying words that we didn't write and we keep repeating them over and over again? I said, women shouldn't be asking this question. Every wife says to her husband, how come you don't say I love you? And every husband says, you know I love you. And she says, yeah, but how come, why don't you say it? And the husband says, if you know I love you, why do I have to say it? And the wife says, I'd like to hear you say it. And the husband says, you know I love you, I've always loved you, grow up. And the wife says, would it kill you to say I love you? So the husband says, this happens in every family. And the husband says, if I say I love you, will you be happy? She says, yes. He says, fine, I love you. Can we talk about something else now? Do we do the same thing with God? God says to us, how come you never say Shema Yisrael to me anymore? How come you don't say Hashem Echad? And we say, you know you're one. You've always been one. You're the one. You're one. God says, how come you don't say it? So, well, if you know it, why do I have to say it? God says, I'd like to hear you say it 3 times a day. Every day. And we said, but if you know you're one, why do you need to grow up? And God says, would it kill you to say Shema Yisrael? So we say, all right, if I say it, you will be happy? He says, yes. So we go to shul and we say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu. Can we go now? That's so masculine. Should a husband say I love you to his wife? To his wife?
If she wants me to.
But he doesn't see a need for it. It's not his words. They don't work for him. Should he still say it? Why? They're not his words. Because he doesn't say what his words are, because I mean, he's not a monster, you know. He's not going to say what he wants to say. But why should he say words that are not his?
She wants to hear it.
Is that reason enough?
Yeah.
How about, is that the best reason? Imagine if the wife says, how come you never say I love you? I'd really like to hear you say it. He says, you know, there are words I would like to say. You want to hear that? She would probably say, those words work for you. I'm talking about what works for me. So why should he say I love you? Because those words work for her, even when they're not working for him. So what is davening? Davening means these are the words. These exact words work for him. I have no idea what they mean. Does it matter? Yeah.
What about saying it in English until you understand it? If those are the words in Hebrew.
If you say it in English, it's the thought that counts. If you say it in Hebrew, those are the right words. So if you don't know the Hebrew, say it in English, because the thought counts. Because the best thing is to combine the two. So we do mitzvahs, aside from davening, which we don't feel doesn't do anything for me. This woman says, you know, I started keeping Shabbos. I don't need this. I said, so? She said, I don't need this. Yeah, so? I know you don't need this. You didn't write the 10 Commandments. You're doing it because he needs it. It's his Shabbos. He created the world in 6 days, not you. But he invites you to keep Shabbos with him. His Shabbos. Isn't that more important than what works for you? It is.
Could we just take one last question?
Yeah.
But then I feel like there are people that like follow, you know, all the halachot and do everything, but they don't even necessarily have like a real connection. They don't even really care to like really.
There's that too. There's that too. Now, if you have a husband, like there are two husbands. One husband does everything right, but he's not romantic. I've heard wives complain. He's a good man. I really shouldn't complain. He's good. He works hard. He does everything. If I need help, he's there. He's not romantic. Then you hear from another woman. My husband is totally unreliable. He never does what you're supposed to do. He can't keep a job. He doesn't show up on time, but he's so romantic. If the first one wants to get divorced, I would tell her, you're crazy. If the second one wants to get divorced, I would say, quick. Do it quick. A guy who is romantic but is not functional, get rid of him. A guy who's functional but not romantic, don't lose him. The combination, of course, perfect. But if a person is doing all the right things without the right flavor, you're going to throw that away? You're going to throw that away. A person who's into flavor but doesn't do all the right things, you can throw it away. It's a sizzle without a steak. It's the cream without the cake. The Zohar puts it very nicely. The Zohar says, if you do a mitzvah without love and fear, it's like a bird without wings. It doesn't soar. So when you do a mitzvah, you should do it with love and fear. Because without the love and fear, it's like a bird without wings. What if you have the love and fear, but you don't do the mitzvah? What's that?
Wings.
That's wings without a bird. What are wings without a bird? Feathers. What did you say?
Barbecue.
If it's a kosher chicken, it's with wings. It's with the feathers. If you have a bird that doesn't have wings, you don't throw it away. You have to feed it. You have to take care of it. You can't cause it pain, and it's even kosher. But if you have wings without a bird, you can throw it away. There's nothing there. So a person who does a mitzvah, but without the right, keep doing it and try to develop the right feeling. But if you have all the right feelings, but you won't do the mitzvah, that's like, shut up, I love you. That's not good.
Can we talk about
Fear?
for a minute? Because the love thing is very easy to understand. The fear, everyone talks about it all the time, and I don't understand why we have to do anything out of fear if we can get it out of love.
I'll tell you what fear means. If God is vulnerable and can cry, then he is very vulnerable and his tears are terrible. Isn't that scary? The thought that you could hurt him, that's frightening. Not he can strike you down with a...
Lightning.
That's fear of lightning. That's a different religion.
So then it's the same thing. The love and the fear that you're talking about is one and the same.
Love and fear are one and the same. Love means I want to see you happy, and fear means it would kill me if you were sad. That's what it means. In fact, thinking that God needs you is scary. Scary good, but scary. Because if he needs, that's intense. So love and fear always come together. If you love somebody, you're afraid of losing him. You're not afraid of losing him? You don't really love him. What does it mean to lose him? It doesn't mean he might disappear. To lose him means to lose that special connection. Fear doesn't mean fear of punishment. Don't make God sound like a monster. He puts you through 3,000 years of misery and then he's angry at you? Come on. Don't do that to him. God created Yom Kippur because he wants to forgive you, not because you need to be forgiven. Does that make sense? So you should have a lot of good news. Really good news. Like a wedding invitation.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.